Good evening, I'm Zaragana. Welcome to the studio. I was just thinking then, as to, I was thinking, what was I thinking? I was thinking about the camera setup and whether to flip the two cameras. I don't know, I think you probably more want to watch this. Okay, so I'm wondering what's gone wrong, because I've got some water, I've got the light on, the mic's working, I'm recording, the mic's live, chat's set up, the alerts are set up and running, I'm watching my own stream back, I've got the right tool selected and the Pyrography machine's turned on. And I've got the right glasses on. So I'm wondering what's gone wrong. We guess we're going to have to see what happens, I guess. And go from there. Right, so Pyrography. We're doing bits and pieces. I was working on these and I was thinking of doing something last stream. I have no idea what it was. So we will just carry on from no idea what it was and just do things. So over here, where the studio is today, it feels like it's been almost hot enough to do Pyrography without actually using any tools. Completely exaggerated, of course, but yes, now I've been hot. I think it was something like 30 degrees in the shade. I know it was at least 30 degrees in the house in the shade, which was really rather amazing. That wants to be a bit darker, I think. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Again, this is going to be dark as well. So this weekend we went out, that's yesterday, went out to visit the Yorkshire Wildlife Park, which is a place near Doncaster. Quite a fascinating place, really. I got some nice pictures, so I've got some potentially some images for things like pyrography and stuff like that. Wildlife Park, it's actually been a relatively famous one because they started by rescuing some lions, I think, from Romania that were in really bad conditions, and they brought them over and effectively started a, well, they call it Wildlife Park, a zoo, I guess, in West Yorkshire near Doncaster, and they've sort of grown from there. I think they started off with about 15 or 19 lions or something, and to that they've added leopards, tigers, polar bears. They've got four polar bears, camels, giraffes, and the usual sort of South African. Well, you know, impala type things, with, you know, and meerkats as usual, and dogs, and the odd sort of monkey and things. So, but it's an interesting place, and we're out there at the weekend, and as I say, I've got quite a few photographs, so hopefully it will be some good subject matter at some point for making some pictures, but we shall see. Yes, welcome. Thank you very much for the host. That's very kind of you. Hello, how are you doing, sir? I think you were broadcasting today, weren't you? I've got a feeling I saw you broadcasting. It's yeah, it's actually an old shed. It's rather dilapidated actually, and it's been on this site for about 50 years, and it's going to get knocked down in a couple of weeks' time and replaced with a new one, but actually in the same style. So it'll be clad in this Waney timber. And it will actually be waterproof, and it'll make a very nice workshop. But yeah, I know it looks like a small cabin. It's 10 by 8, or ish, thereabouts. 10 foot by 8 foot, so that'll be about what 3.2 meters by 3 meters, something like that. We're actually making it a little bit bigger when we replace it. So it's ours. It's outside the window here. Yeah, it's not done bad for 50 years. What's happened basically is it got a bit neglected for a few years before we moved here. So the floors collapsed. The roof has because it's not been the roof hasn't been protected. It's been the roof has rotted through, and therefore the inside's now a little bit dilapidated as well, and the doors warped as you might be able to see. But yeah, it's done well for that age. If it had been looked after, it would probably still be sound now. But it's kind of a sentimental value, so I'm doing a pyrography picture of it before it gets replaced. Now this will probably look a lot better than the real shed does, but what the heck. So if you were doing your final preparations today, when are you coming back? Streaming. And what will you be streaming? Because I've got a memory. Sieves hold more than my memory does. So I recall you used to stream, but I can't recall what it was. It's really rather weathered wood, is this? There's some algae on it, but not much. But I'm trying to keep a little bit of texture in the wood because it's wood. And I don't want it to end up looking like it's been painted or something. I'm gonna start tomorrow, okay? You're gonna look for ideas. Yeah, that's that's kind of my trick. One of the hardest things I find, especially with streaming things like the carving or even pyrography, is thinking of the ideas. They always seem really, well, to me they always seem really hard to come up with, especially carving. I never really can think of something that's good that I can carve or I can attempt to carve, and that's it's kind of annoying in a way. It would be a lot easier to have somebody say, I want you to carve X or Y. And it's sort of thing like, I mean, I mentioned earlier that I was out at Yorkshire Wildlife Park yesterday, and there were things there like the African animals, polar bears and lions, tigers, meerkats and things, and to some extent kind of lots of things that you could use to carve with. And when I'm out there I can think, oh, that'd be nice to carve, or that'd be nice to paint, or that'd be good to do something in pyrography. And then when I come home, I've completely forgotten all about them. I really ought to take a notebook with me, I guess, and write everything down every time, but never do. Yeah, well, I mean, it's nice to have a challenge anyway, just from the point of view of sometimes it's very easy just to do things that you know you can do. I don't think I ever do. Whatever I do, it's always. Pyrography's getting not quite like that now, but it's always something that I don't think I know how to do, and then I just do it, because to some extent all of these things they look, whatever it is, they always look complicated, don't they, until you actually start and you go, I want this bit of a curve, or I want this colour, and if you just concentrate on the little bit that you're doing, then magically it all comes together, and that kind of always fascinates me. Mind you, this one of the things I will be starting soon, which is hopefully within a couple of months, is some glass work. Actually, it's flame work. That's when this gets replaced. Sounds like you, yeah. So when this gets replaced, I'm gonna be setting up in there some flame work, some glass work, and have a go. And to be honest, I'm having more ideas about what I can do in that, because I've been interested. I don't know if you've mentioned it on the stream before, but I've been interested in flame work. That's people working with a torch and glass for as long as I can remember. That's over 40 years. And I've always been fascinated with it, always thought it was not something that the average person could do, really expensive and things like that. And a couple of years ago I kind of found out through Twitch as it happens. Actually, it's not that expensive. Or it's not really expensive. It's not cheap, but it's not really expensive. And I've been sort of wanting to have a go for ages. So actually, last Friday, so not last week, the week before, I actually went on a glassworking course for the first time. And the idea of which, I actually did a 3-hour course and then 5 hours playing with glass. So I got 8 hours in a glass studio. And the idea was to see whether I liked working with glass, because there was no point in buying several $100 worth of equipment, or UK pounds worth of equipment, if I didn't like it. You know, I loved watching it, but whether I liked actually doing it was another matter. So I actually had a go. And after about 10 minutes I knew I liked doing it, but I actually made some things while I was there, which I happen to have in front of me, so I'll show you. Yeah. It was fun. It was really fun. So I had some things demonstrated to me first, and then I made them. And so one of the first things that I had demonstrated and then I made was this little fella. Now, camera, are you on autofocus? No, you're not. Is that camera going to be a better? That camera's probably better in that respect. Let me switch to that, and then you'll be able to see, hopefully see, this little fella. Because this camera is auto-focusing. So this is a little glass piggy. So that is literally the very first glass thing that I've made ever, and that was the first thing. Then after that, I got to make a pendant, so a leaf pendant. Oops, that's not showing that it's red and dark blue, but you can't really see it too well, the dark blue too well. But that is actually a leaf pendant. If I switch back to the other camera, you might pick up the blue out of this. I think you can just about see the blue in there. It's a semi-transparent blue, but it's not showing up too well. You can sort of catch it. But my bells are a terrible shape at the moment. And then the third thing was, surprisingly or not, because it sort of surprised me as well, I got to make a marble. Now, it was supposed to be something called a vortex marble, which is supposed to have a spiral in it, like a spiral galaxy. But unfortunately I forgot to twist it. So I've got a marble, a vortex marble without the vortex, and it's not really very round. But for the very fact it's the very first marble that I ever made. I was just rolling it on the bench and you can't see that. But for the very first marble I ever made, and it's sort of-ish round, it will roll a little bit, but I'm rather pleased with having made a marble. And then I got to basically just have a go with lots of things. Another little pen. This doesn't work too well, does it, with a light like that? It's a tiny little pendant, a heart-shaped pendant, sort of rather a quirky sort of shape, but so that was another thing that I had a go. Yeah, indeed, and I had great fun, and it is something that they sort of said is I actually have done quite well for a first attempt. Then we tried out making a poppy. Again, as you say, first attempt, and they weren't bad. They are at least in one piece, and they are joined on, which is something. The best one probably was this, which is a transparent pendant, another leaf. Well, that's a nice transparent one with pink and green, and One of the ones I quite like is I made a Dragonfly. Again, the wings aren't great, but they're not bad. And again, as you know, I've never made a Dragonfly before, and yet this is the first time. And I did this completely by myself. The instructor actually wasn't in the room at the time, so he did keep popping in from time to time and having a look at what I was doing, but he didn't actually sort of really. He never said you're doing it wrong or anything like that. And then a daffodil was made. So these are sorts of things I do when I start working with glass. And then I got to actually blow glass. So that's flame working with solid glass. Then I got to work with tubing, and so I've got a couple of Christmas ornaments. So I got to blow glass. This is my very first attempt at blowing glass ever, and the bottom is slightly off centre, but so's the top for that matter. But for the fact that it's the very first time I did it, and I've got a nice round bubble. The ball bit's nice and round. It's just the top and bottom are off centre, but again, it's a bit of a quirky bauble. And the second attempt didn't go quite as well. It was more centred, but I didn't quite get the right point on it, nor at the top. But second attempt, I am quite pleased with it, and I also made a personalised pendant as well. So that one's another thing. So they're the sort of things I'll be making. And so, I guess you can tell I enjoyed doing it because I made so many things. But I actually really rather surprised myself at just how I was able to do it, because I was, once I started doing it, it kind of felt like I knew what I was supposed to be doing. Glass, when you melt it, it's a bit weird. It obviously gets softer the more you heat it. But for some reason, and I can't think what it was, I must have worked with some material in the past, which is a similar sort of properties in the way you handle glass, because it's a bit like treacle, or if you've ever mixed thick epoxy resin, it's a bit like that when you're working with it. And I don't know, it just seemed to come naturally. Well, I'll obviously. It will be at least another. Well, I know the shed isn't going to be ready for another couple of weeks. Then I've got to order the stuff, the kit, which will probably be about a week, and then set it up in there and try and get some broadcast equipment into it, because whilst there's power there's no broadband, there's no internet connection to it, so I've got to get an internet connection into there, and I've got to get a PC, which I might have one which is good enough to actually broadcast there, because I'm not taking my desktop out there. That's a big heavy machine, and I don't want to be lifting that in and out of there every night. But so something like 3 or 4 weeks, with a bit of luck, maybe a little bit longer, you'll see me working some glass. You'll see me working some glass, not very well, but it'll be practice. I shall be practicing, and I will be challenged. Well, I suppose all of these sorts of things were challenging, because I had no idea how to make a dragonfly, and I just did. So I will. Well, that's cracked. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. I hadn't noticed that. I've got a crack in the wing. One of the nice things about this is I can probably repair that though, with a torch. I'd not noticed. It's probably a stress fracture that I didn't notice. Oh, okay. So I wasn't quite perfect. that'll be good. And I will try. Excuse me. I'll try and catch some of your streams. Because I do follow you, so I should get the notifications. And what, I guess if I start streaming glass, one of the things I will have to do is learn how to do two things at once, like not to stop what I'm doing whilst I'm talking, because that's not a good idea with glass. It tends to drip and droop all over the place if you you stop rotating it, for example, or take it out of the flame. At least I'll be working with borosilicate glass, I think, which does mean I can let it go cold and then heat it up again. I can't do that with normal soft glass. But yeah, the good old days when I stop whatever I'm doing whilst I'm talking, and I've got to remember to come back and keep on doing it. This wants to be yeah. So I'm just adding in some of the sort of features that are on the sheds, so that it looks like it's not a perfect replica, and it won't be by any means. But as long as I add some of the sort of features that are on the actual shed, it will look like it. Mind you, there aren't too many sheds that look like this, so it's not hard to be recognised. Actually, what did I carve last? I did some carving a while ago now. I'm trying to think, what was it? It was probably I did a Hearthstone card. Oh, it's really hard to show this to get the 3D, but yeah, the glare is just really bad off the camera. So this was a Hearthstone card, the Feral Gibberer. I did a pyrography of it and then decided that I'd have a go at carving. There was a little bit of power carving in that as well, because it was easier to do some of the things with the power engraver than it was to use the chisels. Thank you. I went through a period of doing a few carvings. I finished off Amber the Owl. I'm sure I did. I've done two, because I had to cut a piece of wood in half vertically, because, well, I had to slice. It was a sort of a twice as thick as that, and I'm trying to think, what did I do? Oh, you know, my members. Thank you. I've actually only used about half the depth of that wood as well. I really should have gone a bit deeper in the carve, but there are times when it's easy to see that afterwards. So there's a bit of forced perspective in it as well, just to make it look a bit deeper, just because I had gone. Well, it was one of those pieces that was a challenge. You know, it's like it's the thing where you learn afterwards that what you should have done was, and that's part of the reason why I use the power carver, because there's such small tiny areas to get deep in with a chisel. I keep doing it to myself. I keep picking these subjects which have got really awkward deep angles, or there's the space between two things isn't quite wide enough to get a chisel through. And I keep doing that. I keep thinking, what I ought to do is just make sure next time there's a bit more space, so that angle isn't quite as acute. Yeah, as you say, that's how it goes. You always learn afterwards. I'm wondering where the other half of that board has gone. The one I finished up, I don't know if you saw Amber the Owl, but this one, of course, was relatively easy. I say relatively easy because, of course, I remembered no sharp corners and no small spaces to get a chisel into. So that one was a relative. It took a long. I started this one about a year and a half ago. It didn't take a year and a half to do, but I took about a year off. I didn't do any carving or anything, and I finished this actually when I came back to streaming. So Amber was a relatively easy start. What I should do with this really is start to cut feathers and things on there, but at the time I wanted to do something else. Where's the other board? Because I think I did, I'm sure I did another Hearthstone card. That's not it. I have no idea. Maybe I'm remembering something I didn't do. No, it's not under there. I'll have to go looking after the stream now to see if the other half of the board is somewhere else. Because it was a pain in the neck. It was about 4 inches thick. Was the board, and there was no way I was going to sort of carve away 3 inches or whatever. And I needed to cut it in half. Only I don't have a bandsaw, so it was using a circular saw to cut the 4 sides to with it, you know, because the board's about that wide. So there was a sort of a 3-inch square in the middle, which I'd then to take a crosscut saw, a manual crosscut saw to go through. Boy, does it take a long time to go through that amount of wood. Then I should have planed it, but by that time I'd had enough sewing. And again, it's one of those things. It would have been dead easy to do that job with a bandsaw. I've got some log slices, which I keep feeling that I ought to do some carving with as well. But that'd be relatively wet wood. But I've not. Again, it's finding things. You know, I've got a nice, and I mean it sort of must be 50, well, quite a few 15-inch discs. They're about 1.5 inches thick. To either carve or do pyrography on, or a mix of both. And I can't think of what on earth to do on something that size that is, in quotes, good enough to do on a wood log disc, because it's even got the bark around it. And I'm saving them for something. I don't know what yet. Yeah, that's right. Bandsaw's probably what. The bandsaw would probably be mine. You know, if I was to get one, would be the next thing. Because of course, it makes it nice and easy to do. You know, to do some preliminary shaping if you're doing 3D carving as opposed to relief carving, and you know, the vertical cuts, like, you know, sizing that down would be a lot easier. Not sure I'd go for a scroll saw just after that, but maybe something like a thickness planer. Yeah, I have a power plane, but because the problem with power planes is it's a manual driven tool, so trying to get something flat with a power plane, a thickness is probably better. But yeah, massive. Well, large garage wouldn't be. Well, I could do something in the large garage. I wouldn't do it in the shed, but the large garage or something like that. But yeah, if you'd won the lottery, a massive workshop's not a problem, is it? There's only one problem with winning the lottery: I don't do it. It would really be like Christmas, wouldn't it, if you won the lottery? You know, going down to a decent tool supply and saying, and go walking in and going, I'll have one of them, 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 he says, and I must remember to put that back on there, because you're seeing me not doing anything and maybe seeing a finger wandering in at a time. But yeah, I'll have one of those saws and one of them and that, and it will be yeah. It's I occasionally will play, but I don't go mad. You know, maybe £1 or £2 UK pounds. I don't know where you are, Ace, but yeah, I'll occasionally get a lottery ticket, but not very often. Because I always tend to look at it along the lines of, well, I could buy a lottery ticket for the next 5 years, regularly buy lottery tickets for the next 5 years, not win anything whatsoever, and if I'd have only bought some tools with the same money. Oh yeah, UK too. Yeah, so pounds. Yeah, was it £1 or £2 now? I think, isn't it? The lottery. So. And of course, the one thing I never do is I never look at the lottery if I haven't. I don't even usually look at it when I've played it, but I never look at it because you always go. You always. Well, I think the real worst thing to do if you ever watched the lottery was to see the numbers that you would have picked had you played it come up. That would be absolutely devastating. You've never bought a ticket. I bought a few. I'm not particularly a gambling person. I once went to Las Vegas, went in quite a few casinos, and I never spent a penny. Never gambled anything. Watched lots of people put lots of money into machines and on the tables and things. I had just no interest in doing it. What I sometimes do, and of course it's counterproductive in a way, but when there's a sort of a £50 million rollover jackpot or something like that, I'll buy a ticket, or one of the Euro Millions when it's at sort of ridiculous sums. Then I'll maybe buy a ticket. Again, I don't always, because I just don't look at what they are, but. If I get to sort of know about it, then I might go, we'll have a go. I was about to say, of course, it's counterproductive because there's more people, well, I suppose there is more people play it when there's those things, so you're likely to get sort of if you were to win, you might be sharing it, but I suppose, a share of several hundred million is still quite a lot of money. Yeah, even when I do buy a ticket, I usually wait the next day and to check the ticket. I don't sit there in front of the. Is it still on television? But I don't sit there in front of the broadcast, whatever, going, is it my number and things like that. I don't. Let's turn this up a little bit. It's a bit too slow for me. So the markings on this wood is kind of a bit odd. It's the wood is actually it does have a wavy edge. It's not rotten or anything. That's actually how the wood is. It's called it's got an odd name. It's called Waney, W-A-N-E-Y, Waney edge, which is supposed to be the proper definition of Waney edge. It's supposed to be that's the side of the tree. So when they cut the plank, they don't trim it smooth. They actually just leave the edge of the tree on there for for these sorts of applications. Not like B&Q. Their Waney edge timber is somebody who's gone a bit silly with a bandsaw. It's wandered. But what was I saying about it? Oh yeah, but this has had sort of wood preservative on it, which used to be creosote from years ago, and as sort of the rain has come down these planks, it's actually sort of protected the area underneath from being the creosote being washed off. So when you look at this, the dark tops is where the creosote is still sort of present, and it gradually sort of tapers out until the bottom, which is just then plain dried out wood. But it's a really sort of interesting pattern because of that, and it's a challenge. Yeah, you were talking about challenge. It's a challenge to represent that on here. That needs some colour, just because I'm going to put it next to a white window frame. I'll come back to that. So this one here is really rather dark. Yep, that's right. I do indeed. I've not made any. Actually, I was about to say I haven't made any for a while. I think I made some about a month ago now. Hello, Wolfie. Welcome. Good evening. Yep, and of course these I made sterling silver and aluminium. I think that looks shinier than the sterling silver, but. I got my glass back, Wolfie, from the day out. I got the glass that was annealing, so I couldn't show you earlier. I was just showing Ace earlier. You hardly forgot. So I'll show you some of the glass I made Wolfie. Yeah, I mean you've already seen the baubles and the daffodils, but you haven't seen the other things. So as a lovely little biggie. This is literally the very first thing I have ever made in glass. So. Complete with little floppy ears. Sorry, this camera. I haven't got a camera that focuses very well. And then I made some pendants. Like a leaf. This one shows up better on this camera. It's red and a transparent blue. Yeah, don't look at the bail. At least it's got a hole in it, but it's a terrible shape. A nice leaf pendant. And a transparent version of the leaf pendant. Is that... there we go. And a little quirky heart. And a poppy. So nice red poppy. And I even got to have a go at marble, and as I was explaining, this is something called a vortex marble. It's missing a vital ingredient. That's the vortex. I forgot to twist it. You're supposed to sort of put the things inside that you can see in there. You're supposed to twist it, and the twisting it makes it give the spiral vortex effect. I forgot. Now this marble isn't all that round, but at least it's a marble. And I made a dragonfly as well. His tail's pink, by the way, pink and black. The camera's overexposing it a little bit. But a nice little dragonfly. And finally, I made a personalised pendant as well. Just little circles of glass with lettering on it. Thanks, Wolfie. Okay, don't actually remember that to Ace, but I'm glad it's finally. I know that feeling though. I moved, so this is a new studio. I don't know where I'd have been last time you were on the stream, but it took us 9 months to finally settle selling the old property. And it was kind of, so it's not been settled that many months now, but it was kind of, God, glad that's out of the way. That was a real sort of testing time, as they say. Interesting. A good few years ago now, we almost went and looked down at houses in Norfolk. Didn't actually ever get down that far, but we did start looking down around the sort of the east coast, certainly South Derbyshire and down whatever's below that I can't remember now. But did look at sort of properties all over the country. Surprisingly, the east does seem to be relatively cheap. And I'm talking without doing again. And I've just put all those things over where I was looking. Now then, I want to get some texture into this bit here, because we've got a few cracks. So let's put a few cracks in the board. And if I tip the tool up, so I'm using the toe of it, I can get sort of some texture lines into the board, so it kind of looks like the wood texture that you can see. Do need this bit just around here to be dark. Part of it's shadow and part of it is the creosote. Yeah, that was what we were sort of looking to have. Well, a decent sized house, but you know, some land around it as well. And yeah, as you say, it's you get a lot for your money. That was the you still had to pay a lot of money, but you got a lot more for it. Well, I hope it finally does go smoothly for you, Ace, and you complete successfully. So Wolfie, it's beginning to look like it will be something like about 4 to 6 weeks-ish before I'm possibly able to start actually doing glass on stream. Oh, that is not a bad price. That's not a bad price at all. Yeah, the massive extension. That's the nice bit. That can be, as you say, a workshop office. Under 250k. Oh, and 10 minutes from the beach. Yeah, the sea blast and the fog. I love that sort of atmosphere. That, yeah, the sea and the fog. Not so close that it rusts everything in sight with the salt atmosphere, but yeah, 10 minutes is not bad. But under 2. I suppose the key thing is, do you have a decent internet connection out there? I mean, that seems to be it these days. You know, if a house doesn't have a decent internet connection, then nobody wants it. Yeah, something like that up in Yorkshire would be easily 500,000 or more. Although, yeah, granted I've no idea how big a 4-bedroomed house it is, but sort of from experience of that sort of thing, yeah. So we're going to get lots of new projects out of you then Ace, once you've got that sort of area to work in. So how have you been, Wolfie? You being a little bit quiet today? Oh dear. Did you get, I don't know, did you get seagulls out there? What gets me sometimes is there's I mean, it's not so long ago I was down in Bristol, and what surprised me was seeing seagulls there. I mean, well, not necessarily seeing them, but hearing them. Obviously, they're a distinctive call, and not realising that Bristol is actually on the coast. When you go down to the place, it's just almost like any other city. There's kind of a river, sort of there, but it is literally almost on the coast, and there's quite a few places around the UK that are like that, where you're actually on the coast but feel like you're inland quite a long way, and it still surprises me. Yeah, Norfolk though, with the flatland, there's a lot of bird sanctuaries and stuff out there, if I remember rightly as well. So just on the beach, yeah. My only real experience of seagulls though is we were on the coast last year, I think it was, and Ladies Hour had some fish and chips and walked onto the beach and promptly didn't have them anymore because of the about half a dozen seagulls that came down and just mobbed her and just grabbed everything, flew in her face and all sorts. Those birds were quite vicious in a way. They certainly weren't scared, and they were going to have the both the fish and the chips. So we went and got some more, because obviously she'd just lost hers, and she'd got the box, because they come in a box lid closed, and was sort of opening it it's away from the seafront, so opening the box a little bit, taking a chip out, closing the box and eating it, trying to so that you didn't get taken again. Kind of a thing to laugh at, but it wasn't funny at the time, as I'm sure you can imagine. Now then, I've got a... Why did I put that dotted line there? Oh... I don't know, why did I put that dotted line there? Other than maybe to indicate the fact that that's a damaged... I said damaged, rotten windowsill. By turning the tool over, using this side of it, I'm getting like small cuts in the wood almost, but I'm getting sort of lots of lines as opposed to just a big area of colour, and whilst the lines sort of come together to make it look dark, it's kind of like semi-realistic in the way you sort of get the fibrous sort of, when the wood rots, you get that sort of long thin sort of wood. Yeah, you could just go look out the window. Yeah. You saw that. Yeah, there's where we were. There's signs out which says, there's big signs out which literally said, under no circumstances feed the seagulls, do not feed the seagulls. People still do, and it's kind of, they just don't realise what that means. You saw loads of people losing, sandwiches or anything else that they'd eaten, but yeah. The bit that puts me off, or put me off a little bit about, you know, sort of around the Norfolk sort of area with sort of the marshlands and things, would be you know, midges and gnats and that sort of thing. Getting loads of those, because they're a pain in the neck. Don't like them at all. I used to go spend a lot of time in Scotland around the sea locks on holiday and things, and as it got towards dusk, like, you know, let's say 6 o'clock at night, one of the things you did is you went in. You know, we used to be camping, so you go in, you seal everything up until it got dark, because literally sort of midges would come out. You see these black clouds, and there were little tiny midges, but hundreds of millions of the things. You really didn't want to be walking through those things. You actually ended almost breathing the things if you weren't, and then they cover your face. Yeah. See, yeah. Yeah, can you imagine that? Ringing the police up there. He says, "Hello, we've got a shoplifter. He just walked in and walked out with a packet of crisps. But as he got to the door, he took off and flew." Yeah. That is some. Yeah, that's. Obviously, they've learned what a packet looks like, a packet of crisps. Come back to that later. Although I've got a feeling I don't know what to do with these windows. I'm kind of putting off doing anything with them, but I kind of don't want to put it off. Let's work light. Yeah, imagine. Yeah. Oh, I don't know though. I mean, could you imagine a lineup? You know, what would there be? Sort of like a puffin, you know, maybe a couple of rooks, you know, a raven perhaps, you know, a seagull, and maybe a sort of an eagle of some kind. I thought the other one is sort of, you know, there's the usual sort of suspects, if you like, from the local criminal population. You can imagine a camera going down the line, you know, looking at them each in turn, and then suddenly going to a blank space and then panning down and panning down and panning down and down and down, and then there's this seagull down there. So what I'm just trying to represent here is some sort of reflection in the windows. There is actually a tree reflected in the window, but I'm just trying to put something in, see if I can make it work. Okay, now I've got to erase the lines and then I can try and do a sort of a shade on the glass, so that the glass, or the sort of reflected light off the glass, starts to look visible, and then I can leave around it white, which is the actual window frame. Let's turn this down even more because I want this to be quite light. Of course, wanting it to be light and it actually turning out light are two entirely different things. It doesn't quite show up on the screen, but it does. It does here. Now the reference for this was taken on quite a dull sort of day, so it's kind of like just a greyish sort of reflection in the windows. because the shed's a little bit dilapidated and sort of sagged and warped a little bit. If I don't do a straight edge, it doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't really have a straight edge. I mean, especially these planks, but it's kind of another one of these projects where if I don't do it quite right, that's all right, because it kind of looks right, because there's no straight edges. And almost literally, there isn't a straight edge on this. The window frame is sort of, you know, rotted and twisted a little bit, and all the planks are twisted and wavy edges. The side has warped a little bit, and yeah, there's not a straight edge on this shed. Okay, Ace. Well, have a good dinner. Luckily, I had mine before I started the stream tonight, so. Now, one thing I find interesting for me is that if I'm working downwards, I can stop where the heel of this tool will form the back line, but I can't start at it. I can't start this bottom edge and work up. I have to start at the top and work down, otherwise I misplace the start of this line here. Now, may very well revisit those windows at some point. That the white looks really too white, which is the window frame around it here, so may knock that down a bit. But it is actually a sort of a white gloss paint that's been used, so it's not necessarily wrong. Now that could do with being a bit darker. It's got the warped edge of a board there. Okay, so here I am doing details again. Really shouldn't be doing details, but I'm going to do them anyway. As I usually say, I'm the artist, it's my picture. I'll do it whatever way I want. Nobody can tell me I'm doing it wrong. Even if I am doing it wrong. And I have done it wrong, but I'm not admitting to that. Okay, now I've put an edge in there, which actually isn't visible, but it looks better just by doing that. Make sure I get the trace down off, otherwise it cooks in if I put pyrography over the top and then looks too dark. Got to come back and do some more work on those windows, but they'll what they'll do is they'll satisfy me for the moment, and then I can come back and look at them afterwards. I've lost the big white space that was there that sort of kept drawing my eye to it and throwing off colours and shapes and things around it. At least it's sort of got something in that space, and I will come back and look at it again to hopefully improve it. Now, I'm probably going to exaggerate, I think, some of the shading. Just give it a little bit more sort of interest is not quite the word I was after, but some of the shades would be relatively close to each other and look fairly sort of bland. So I'm kind of just exaggerating some of the areas just a little bit, making them more darker than they actually would appear if I was to do a straight sort of translation of what I'm seeing onto the wood. Now I am using sort of small, I'm using sort of some fairly long strokes for the background, but then going over it again with sort of short, almost scribbly strokes, and that is really just to stop it looking smooth, really to add texture into the colouring. That's kind of what my challenge is on this, is to keep it looking like a wood shed, because it would be fairly easy just to sort of do single flat colours, and then it sort of makes it more, what's the word I'm looking for? I was about to say childlike, but that's not actually what I mean. But it's sort of like a child might just use a straight colour, just colour it in, all one solid colour. It looks, I prefer, it looks less realistic to me. So I want sort of, this is textured wood. It's not smooth. It's not a single colour. I want marks in the colouring, just to make it look sort of more natural and as though it's really. It's real. And I got here what looks like a circular saw blade patterning. So I'll put some of those marks in. So with the pyrography tool, you don't actually, just because it's a flat tool and it's a flat shader, you don't actually have to use it flat. I am quite often using the toe or the side of it, the sharp edges, and I get sort of different effects with it than I would do if I use it as a flat tool. And if you sort of draw lines, as I'm doing with the nose here, with the toe of it, if I put enough marks down, it's like a newspaper. The more, they're still painting with dots, but the more dots in an area, the darker or the more solid the colour looks, whatever it is that they're using. And it's kind of the same here. If I draw enough lines, it will look like a solid colour, but you'll see the lines. So you'll see the texture that made up the colour in the first place. So it sort of looks good close up, and it looks good from a distance. Now it's actually an interesting illustration here of using of pyrography, of using the tool, because I'm using this tool relatively cool. So I might on this machine I might normally use this tool around about 6 or 7. I'm using it about 4 to 4.5. So it's a relatively cool working tool. But I can make all really dark lines just by taking my time and letting the wood sort of cook, so the tool's staying in place for quite a long period of time, which makes the wood go dark. And you can do this with low temperature. You don't actually have to do it with high speed. So all turning up the tool, the temperature does is means you have to work faster. You don't really get much more out of it in terms of colour. You can get a bit darker with the higher temperatures than you can with low temperatures, and if you go really low, then it's quite hard to get the darker colours. But you can do all this sort of thing with a low temperature tool and use time. So you're trading off time for temperature really. And time can be a very valuable tool in getting the effects that you want. Especially if you do work slowly, because you've then got time to see what's happening to the colour that you're putting down and to change it, well, or to stop it from getting darker. Not exactly change it. That would be an interesting technique for getting reeds in water, because the marks kind of remind me of that a little bit. And again that board, so yes, sometimes this is a bit like rinse and repeat, but that's the way these things go. I'm going to have to see about a small fridge for in there. It will be nice working with glass to be able to have cold water like that. Mind you, I am thinking what this is going to be like out there in winter. Because despite having a torch which is at several thousand degrees, it ain't going to be that warm out there. Even with a kiln going. Because one of the things with the torch running, I need to be able to extract and inlet more air, and it's going to be dragging in cold air in winter. Because I'll probably have to do something like leave the door open. I'll have to see if I can work some way around that. All of these things that I've got to think about. Of course, if you were in somewhere like the Caribbean, then it would be nice and, I was about to say nice and warm. I suppose if you were in there in the cool temperatures, it would feel cold because you'd be used to the warmer temperatures. It just feels like in the, if you're in the UK, you sort of feel, oh, it'd be nice over there because it's always warm. Warm relative to the UK perhaps, but cold relative to where you are. It's funny because we go on holiday sometimes to Greece, and the people we know there, when in early season, sort of early end of April, early May, for example, they're wearing thick coats, the sort of coats that we'd be wearing in the middle of winter. And sort of jumpers and things like that, multiple layers. And of course, the holiday makers are over there in swimsuits because it's warm, and they're wearing coats. It's kind of always a bit weird to see, and because it's just what you get used to. I mean, in the middle of winter, it's currently here in the studio 27 degrees Celsius, that is, and I know in the middle of winter at 20, 23, 24 in here, that would be really too uncomfortable, and yet here it is 27 degrees and I'm okay. If it got down to 21, I'd be thinking it's cold in here, it's really freezing. It's amazing how you get used to temperatures. I'm kind of looking at the reference picture that I've got for guidance, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I'm not actually following it colour for colour, you know, shape for shape. What I am doing is kind of looking at it to see where the rain shadows have been. So typically just underneath the edge of the timber, and the odd, you know, down here where this is sticking out, there's a bigger rain shadow. But essentially I am just sort of making this up as I go along. Except, as I say, picking out the odd relatively unique thing, so it's recognizable. Things like these particular shapes of these planks here are recognizable to us, or the fact that the wood, the windowsill is going rotten. So as long as I'm picking out some of those odd things and the rain shadows that we get here, it doesn't really matter what I do. Okay, I'm getting a bit impatient. I'm turning up the heat. As I mentioned, turning up the heat just allows me to work faster, but it also means I have to work faster. So I have to remember that things will, you know, colours will change a lot quicker. I have to move the pen a lot faster, especially if I don't want it to create dark lines where I don't want them. So, you know, enabling you to work faster actually means you have to work faster. So it isn't always an advantage to turn up the heat. Yeah, and as expected across there. And for some reason this bottom board has quite a lot of the rain shard on it, so there's quite a bit of the creosote which is left on. Now this does create texture lines, so I am making sure essentially I'm still going in the direction of the wood board, so that any sort of markings, which is really just differential colour, different slight colours, still go in the direction of the board, so they look like you expect them to do. They also tend to look a little bit like the wood textures, and of course this is wood board that I'm doing this on, and it is causing some of the underlying wood grain to show through, which also is making it look like a wood effect. Now, I will turn this up because what I want to do now is go back along that top edge there. In fact, I probably want to do it on all the others. I actually want the edge of the board above to be the darkest element. Excuse me. So I've got the tool tipped up onto its toe, burning my fingers, and it is spreading slightly as the heat, but I'm not bothered about that because it makes the line slightly wider. But I am being careful to touch down exactly where I want it to be, because no second chances. Instant this touch is down, you have a black mark. I'm actually trying not to get blobs as well. So this tool is moving before I put it down on the wood. If it wasn't moving when I touched down, I would get a black blob. I am also rotating the tool, which allows me to steer it a little bit as I go around the curves. Now again, it's one of those things that adds in here just a little bit of extra perspective. Not altogether sure that actually they are showing up quite well, because I'm looking at these around here now, and I can see these, looking at the output that you're seeing, I can see these starting to look three-dimensional. They're actually standing out from the board behind, so you can see them stacked. I mean, this bit here I haven't done, so you can see the difference. That sort of doesn't look, this looks three-dimensional, this looks three-dimensional. It actually looks like the boards are laid on top of one another, which is fantastic. Just what I was wanting. but it is hot. Although I've said it many times before, you don't normally worry about the heat from a usability perspective. Certainly not with these tools. These tools are cool. Yeah, especially since I've tightened that up at the top. This is cool. There's okay. There is some heat there, and there's a bit of heat coming out this slot, but it's warm. It's not. There's no sort of concern at all about heat here, and certainly this is cool. But when I tip it like that, of course, heat is coming straight up, and it's coming straight up onto my fingers, and that's when you feel it. For normal use, not a problem. As soon as you tip it up, you can only go for so long. Okay, hopefully you can see as I'm emphasizing these curves now. You should see the effect of them literally almost, I won't say jumping out, but you know what I mean, they sort of stand out now significantly more. And you're getting that 3D effect really sort of fairly strongly. Okay, I want to put some colour around there before I do that with that particular part of the board, but that now is really starting to look to me like it's like I'm wanting it to. I wonder if I can get it up there as well. Yeah, maybe a bit more work around there, but that looks okay. And yeah, turn that down, turn that off. I like that. I like that a lot. So more colouring to do. Lots and lots of colouring. There always is with pyrography, especially this sort of style, which is a textured foot, a realistic style. There's always lots and lots of colouring. I mean, it's an A4 board. That's what, 11.5 by 8 and something. So if you effectively think a larger portion, if not all of that board gets covered with pyrography, that's what, 88, 90 square inches of a board that you have to colour, and potentially colour more than once. So it's a relatively slowish sort of process. People do work faster than I do. I'm not a particularly fast pyrographer, but I hope I'm a reasonably good representative pyrographer who gets an effect that actually looks like what it's meant to look like. Yeah, like that thing is jumping out at me. That looks really, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my monitor and it looks really good. Hopefully you guys think the same. But it is now just about 9 o'clock. I'm stopping for this evening and we'll be back on the next stream. The next stream is on Wednesday at 7 PM UK time. That's 1800 hours GMT, and we will be continuing with more of this shed. If you'd like to see this broadcast again, if you haven't seen it from the start, or you just want to take another look, it will be available on Twitch for a couple of weeks, and from tomorrow evening it will also be available on YouTube, youtube.com/SarahGannart, where there is also all the other old broadcasts going back some 2 years now. There's several hundred, well, there's almost 1,000 hours of video. I've been broadcasting that long. It's amazing when I added it up. Just surprising. That's I have no idea how long that is continuous broadcasting. I was about to say, but it's certainly several days, and probably, what is it, 2 days, so 24 hours in a day. So if you were, let's to make it easy and say that's 40, yeah, that'd be something like 40 days non-stop broadcasting, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot of video. But yes, they're all there to take a look at. The current series apart from this is of course the truck, which is being painted at the moment off stream, partly because it gets boring to see the same thing painted time after time after time. But the clear coat in particular, this is one layer of clear coat, which smells horrible. Well, actually it smells rather nice, but it's quite strong when there's lots of it. And yes, this is a sparkly blue. So I am actually waiting for some non-smelly or some water-based clear coat, which hopefully will arrive tomorrow, where I can clear coat the other sides. Unfortunately, the lady Zara is a little bit allergic to the clear coat smell, so we're going to see if I can do it without that. Can't do it outside, it dries too quickly in this hot sun, and there's dust and flies around, and you don't want them sticky on it, so you have to do it undercover. Undercover means it gets in the house. It's not a pleasant smell when there's lots of it around. Pear drops, by the way, is the smell. So we may do some of this on stream, or we may not, just to have a change. I've also got one or two other things that I need to clear coat, which is some of the scraper board stuff that I've done in the past, and some of the pyrography, which will benefit from having a matte coat of clear coat over the top in order to protect it, stop it from easily being scratched, and it helps stop it fading in bright sunlight as well. Won't do this one until it's done, but I do have some of the other boards, so we may well do some of that maybe on Friday of this week. But this is still coming along. This series is also available on youtube.com/SarahGannart, and it's cut up into small chunks because there's quite a lot of hours of putting one of these trucks together. But sorry, nice shiny sparkly colours, slightly not chameleon but slightly two-tone, so you got a dark blue and a light blue, but sorry, it's nicely clear coated stuff is lovely to touch because it's nice and smooth. So with that, if you've enjoyed what you've been watching, please push the follow button, consider supporting the channel. If you would like notifications when I go live, either follow the channel here or you can follow me on Twitter. I'm also Sarah Gannart on Twitter. I do tweet when I go live, and the odd occasional other thing related to the stream. Not particularly a prolific tweeter, so you're generally safe if you're the sort of person that doesn't like a timeline that's got hundreds of thousands of things in, like me. with that, I've said it before, but thank you for watching. Hope I'll see you on the next stream, Wednesday 7 PM UK time. Bye for now. Thanks Ace, have a good evening.